Greetings, movie fans. William, the movie fan here. So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 came out about a week and a half or so ago. And was it a good movie? Well, let's see. Well, it's the third one, so it sort of wraps some things up, but, Marvel doesn't really wrap anything up. There's still things out there. I'm sure there's, like they did the holiday TV show, which is a little bit better than the holiday Star Wars one, which I saw as a kid, which I thought was bad, but the cartoon was cool. It was very strange animation. Anyway, getting off on a tangent. But was Guardians of the Galaxy 3 good? Well, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. So it was okay. It was, I guess, average, mediocre. Guardians 1 was, of course, the best, in my opinion. I think 3 might have been better than 2 in some ways. I think because of the tone of the film and what they dealt with. Guardians 2 made me hate the song "Brandy, You're a Fine Girl" by Looking Glass, which I got no fight against Looking Glass, but the way that they used the song in there, and Kurt Russell kind of speaking the lyrics, sort of like Captain Kirk doing his spoken word song.
Want the real Slim Shady? Please stand up. Please stand up. Please stand up.
But Guardians 3, so there were some good things, there were some bad things. And of course, the animation, the CGI was all pretty good. It was definitely Rocket's story in this one, which is interesting because he was not actually in most of the film. It was a little bit of, Peter and Gamora's sort of story in a way. It's Nebula kind of stepped up a little bit more and kind of was the leader-ish because Quill was going through some things with Gamora being dead, but not being dead, and not being the same Gamora, but is still Gamora. There's a whole issue there. So he had to deal with that. But so some of the positives were, again, the comedy was pretty good, but also the negatives was the comedy because, well, the comedy went on too long, and also we kind of already saw some of the jokes in the like hundreds of previews and trailers and things like that. And I just think nowadays they just use way too much and tell you way too much of the story. They really shouldn't do that. I think that's dumb to do it. And well, anyway, so some pros. I mean, Warlock was funny, but the actual character wasn't really funny. I don't know. So there was that whole issue there, and I don't recall in the comic book. I don't recall High Evolutionary creating Warlock. In fact, the High Evolutionary character, again, was a bit good and bad. I think the actor did a fine job portraying this character who calls himself the High Evolutionary, but they kind of changed too much of the story to actually be the High Evolutionary, or I don't know. It just was like not the original comic version. The original comic version was a guy from Earth because, well, Marvel wrote a lot of, instead of DC, they wrote a lot of the characters were from Earth because, well, that makes you helps you relate to them. The dude was a British dude from Earth, mad scientist kind of thing. In the comics, I know there was a cow named Bova that was kind of big from what I remember from collecting the comics in the 80s, in the 70s. So they didn't really have that I recall seeing, although it might have been in a little Easter egg. I might have missed it. So if you saw it, let me know in the comments. The character from the comic book wore red, and this guy wears sort of purplish blue. And the comic book character, the High Evolutionary comic book character, wore a red helmet. This guy wore no helmet, but he had sort of like cybernetic thing on his head or whatever. And I guess, it's hard to act in a helmet. So there's that issue there too. I thought the actor did a very fine job. Chukwudi Iwuji, he was a good actor. But, it's kind of that whole swapping characters and whatnot kind of a thing. They didn't just swap the character. They changed the whole character. So, he was in outer space and he's creating all these worlds. And I will say the High Evolutionary as the character from the Marvel was similar to the movie version, whereas he did want to create, and perfect, creatures and make things, perfect, et cetera, things like that. So I think he portrayed that very well. I know in the comics, the character went a little, off, a little mad perhaps, and I think he tried to kill himself, but the suit saved him, and so it was a whole thing. I think he challenged the Hulk to a fight, if I remember correctly, and Hulk smash. Well, there you go. But then the suit somehow, because it was a really well-made suit, I guess, somehow saved him. So the High Evolutionary was a pro and also a con. I think changing the character too much, I think might have did. I don't know. It's just it's a personal opinion. Soundtrack wasn't as good. I think the soundtrack was probably yeah, the third one of the three. I think the first one was probably the best one. I think the way they used the soundtrack in the first one was better. It seemed more generic and more honest and more like coming from the character and coming from within the film outwards to you to kind of include you. Whereas the in the third one, the music was usually already part of the scene and then it kind of went into the scene. And I just don't think that worked as well. I think, if you're watching a character, you're seeing how the character, relates to that world, whatever it is, whether it's a real world or, animated or whatever. And then by having the music go there and then come out, it's like, hey, I know you're watching the character, but now we're including you in the story. And I think that's just better. I don't know. I think it's just better. Like I said, some of the cons, well, now I will say that whoever the actress was who did Floor the rabbit, very cute voice, but the horrific nature of the animals, experimentation and sort of cruelty, they had some warnings about that. I think, there were some people who said, hey, this depicts, horrible animal cruelty and, death and destruction and whatnot, what have you. So yeah, Floor the mechanized spider rabbit with a weird metal jaw thing, that was very not pleasant. The voice cute as could be, the creature was horrific. And like I said, it was really Rocket's story. And in this movie, Drax is still Drax. Mantis is still Mantis. There's really nothing new there. Although I will say Drax was a good bit uneven. I think he's been uneven pretty much throughout the entire, trilogy of films and maybe even in the other films too. I mean, in a scene now, there's going to be spoilers, obviously. So in the scene near the end, they're trying to rescue these children, and they're speaking some language nobody understands, but Drax understands it, but he doesn't say anything until later. And they were like, "Why didn't you say anything?" He goes, "Well, nobody asked me." He's like, "Oh, yeah, that's one of the oldest jokes in the book. It's like, you never asked." I was like, "Okay, all right." But I think Drax, having been a parent, I would think he would want to calm the children down and because even though if he's a very literal type character, that he would want these small children, because he had small children and he knew they would get frightened, he wanted to calm them down and not have them being frightened. And I think that would make more sense and have him develop more as a character, to have him step up and start speaking the alien language. And they're like, "Wow, we're impressed you did that." He goes, and he could say something to the effect of, I don't like children being afraid. I want, to protect them if I can. And, I can see that because his, wife and children were killed. That would make sense. So a little uneven again. I did like, Will Poulter as Warlock, in that he played the character well, I guess, but it was very buffoonish. They mentioned he was a child, he wasn't quite developed, and so there's probably some of that, which, okay, all right, I get that. So there was that going on. So I understood that. And then I did like some of the other bits were funny. Nathan Fillion character as one of the guards in the unpronounceable medical place, which wasn't the High Evolutionaries, at least the original cartoon comic book version. It wasn't his, Citadel. I don't recall that name ever being used. I believe Wondercore was the name used in the comic book, and then there was the Knights of Wondercore, which were these, genetically modified, mutated animal people, knight warrior things. So there was that. So they tried to use it in a way. I get that. There was that one nice moment when near the end again, where Quill and Groot were meeting up with the High Evolutionary, and he was talking about his perfect world, and Quill says, "Well, I don't think in a perfect world you'll have what was it, an octopus man selling drugs to cockroach kids or something." And the High Evolutionary looks around and he goes, "You're correct." And he just walks off. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to start over again. It's going to kill everybody on the planet. And well, that's what happens. I mean, they didn't get and save a planet, which is unfortunate because it was sort of like Earth, but with animals in that sort of like modern day Earth setting. I don't know. So yeah, there was a lot of that. Other than that, I mean, honestly, there was nothing really memorable, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Nothing really stuck out. I mean, there were some funny parts, but we've seen those in the trailers. Um, some of the gags went on too long. I did. There was a guy from the Ravagers when the Ravagers showed up in about the middle. They're gonna try to raid this place. The Ravagers showed up, and I swear one of them was a wizard that could kind of do the little, he could do the little thing with the. I hope I didn't mess up my recording there. Now let's just make that go away there. Yeah. So he was doing the little thing. And they all kind of like showed up in different parts of their ship. And so I'm just like, well, hey, they could use that to get into the medical place. No, they can't do that. Oh, we can't help you. It's like, but you just did the magical teleportation thing into here. And so now they got to do a spacewalk and they got to do the funny thing with the red, blue, yellow, green suits and the buttons that, Quill is, like you see in the trailer, spilling his guts and his emotions out to Gamora, but everybody hears it and he's embarrassed or whatever. That's just kind of, we've seen that a million times. So there was that. And so that didn't make sense. I'm like, what? It's kind of like the Lord of the Rings, the eagle thing again, right? With why can you take it all the way to Mordor? I don't know. So there's that, or the eagles all the way to the Lonely Mountain and the Hobbit kind of movie there. But other than that, I mean, it was an okay movie. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. It was kind of basically the Disney mass production machine in making films is adequately creating a product. It's nothing special. I mean, I'm gonna give it to you this way. It's sort of like the microwave oven meal of a film. It if you're hungry for a film and you must see a film, this will feed you. Will it be the best meal you've ever had? No. Will it be lacking something? Probably, because you're like, it's the thing that doesn't taste like grandma used to make, in the wood stove or something, It's not grandma's cornbread kind of a thing. So that's the best thing I can give there. So, but you tell me in the comments below what you think of the film. I mean, you might have thought it was fantastically, wonderfully great. And I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't see it. But again, I'm not going to deny what you think is cool. Because again, it's okay to like it, but it's okay not to like it. Doesn't mean if I like it or you don't like it, then the other person has to like it or not like it, or vice versa, or vice versa. Just it's different. It's my opinion. It's a critique. I think they could have done better. I think the bigger issue was you're having this really dark, really sinister, serious sort of thing in the third act of this trilogy, whereas like say the Star Wars franchise kind of had it in the second act, and then you kind of have the sort of the the resolution, the denouement kind of thing at the end there, for all those French people out there. So that was, I think, lacking because when they went to these deeper, darker issues, they also then immediately cut to these really silly things, and that just really that's why it made it uneven. It just didn't. It had the weight. I don't know. Anyway, that's just me. I think they should have lingered more and been more deeply, thoughtful, and I guess sort of hovered over those issues because I mean the dark issues, and when his little friends get killed, well that that was a big thing, and it's kind of like the Fast and the Furious family, we have family, that's kind of a thing, and the Guardians are a family that they kind of kept pushing that. So I mean, there's that, and of course the old silly thing of Quill leaving behind his space stuff when he's on a space mission, like the jet boots and the space helmet. And so oh no, Rocket's gonna die. No, he's not gonna die. Nobody dies, but minor characters die that you've never heard of, and you're like, oh no, they died. Oh no, I feel nothing. So there's that. So I don't know. But anyway, this has been me, William the Movie Fan. So tell me what you think below. If you have any films that I haven't seen yet, or you want to go, hey, I saw this film. What do you think? I will let you know. Tell me down below. And so this is me saying, hey, I'm William the Movie Fan, saying, don't you go away. Stay tuned for more. Bye.